So I've got a chance to show here several times in the last 5 years or so, and they've all been really special. So thanks to IPCY for that, for sure. This is my print that I had in the Homebody show. It's called a Strawberries shirt. And well, I can tell you a little bit about myself. I'm an artist and musician and educator in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, currently. And I run a print shop with my partner, Lauren, who's also a printmaker, called Pressure Club, where we have gallery shows, but also do print projects with different artists. So I invite anybody that's in the Philadelphia area, obviously, to come check us out. But I also do a lot of contract printing out of that space as well. And so coming from a music background and an art background that I've kind of always been working simultaneously, I find myself in this space where I've always been making products and then also making art at the same time. And sort of a lot of my practice in the last 10 years or so has been sort of exploring this sort of spectrum between the product and the art piece. And so does anybody know what this is a picture of? Yeah, some nods. Does anybody not know what this is? Anybody want to be that person? You don't know? Oh, okay. So I asked because I have I'm coming from the Midwest, and I found every once in a while I'll hit a reference that doesn't ring true with most of the people because it's a very like regional, some sort of regional restaurant. But this is a candy wrapper, oversized candy wrapper from a candy that, from what I understand, doesn't have a name that everybody refers to it as. It's like that strawberry candy. It's not like a name for it. And then also, I've never paid any money for this candy, ever, like, except like maybe a donation, I guess. And so, those are actually just bonuses, but that I've sort of been thinking about while I was making these. But what I think this is really unique, at least for me, this piece is really unique because I'm almost always working in series. And so I have this, like the way I work, I set up all these like obstructions for myself, and then I work in series, and I'm able to really wring out as much as I can from having that set of instructions. And this piece is just singular by itself. It's never had any sort of reference to anything else. But I think, especially when I'm thinking about working in the print shop, if I'm making my artwork, pulling silkscreen prints, and I'm also pulling prints for like making some packaging or creating a rock poster for a band or printing some tape labels for something. It's the same, very similar action with totally different results. Like the act of pulling the print, and this turns into like an art piece, or this turns into a punk rock t-shirt or something. So I think it's really interesting to think about it in that regard. But these candies for me were a very personal story of being a little kid. And I think this is almost like an origin story for printmaking for me, where I used to collect these. And so there's lots of like different brands of this strawberry candy. And so I would, as like an 8-year-old kid, I would collect them and I would like flatten them all out. And I had like a little file of these like strawberry candy wrappers. And so that was actually the reason why, so a couple reasons that this turned out this size is obviously I wanted to like sort of recreate that idea of being like a little kid and having this like larger space. So it's been enlarged for that reason. I also really like the idea of creating something like this. Wrapper was created for a candy, and so I created the wrapper to fit in this pre-established IKEA 19.5 square IKEA frame. And then when I actually finished printing it, I actually did some paintings of this first, and it never quite looked right, and I really needed to be like photographic. And when I was done, it just didn't look right, so it had to be wadded up, or it didn't look right because like that act of like smoothing them out, and each of the candies having like slightly different registration problems, which of course when I was 8 I didn't know what that meant, but they're all like, it's kind of just that, I just remember that idea of like looking at them all and seeing how they were different and like thinking about how everything's made somewhere else when it comes to you as like a little kid. I don't know. So not a lot of outdoor time, maybe at that point in my life. Maybe I needed some more. I don't know. So that's sort of the story behind that print. I think it has a lot to do with like this sort of central place. The more that I think about it, that it's this nice sort of like symbol for kind of at least what I've been trying to explore in my work in the last sort of decade, I guess. And so I brought some pieces that sort of run that spectrum of like product meets art piece. And so I don't know if anybody's got a chance to like handle any of these things, but you're welcome to come up and pick up and move any of these things. But I was really interested. This series is a holding it up like this. So holding it up. This is a Cheez-It box, obviously, and then we have a Raisin Bran box. But these are all sort of just kind of thinking about the idea of when I was teaching. Lots of times I would have like references where I was trying to make some comparison to the students, and I would reference like TV Static or something, or like Back to the Future 2, and everybody's like 18 years old, and so they're all like, what are you talking about? That's old, you know. There hasn't been TV Static in like 25 years or something. And so I'm just thinking about like the very poor investment that pop culture can be. Like, as far as like if you're keeping your metaphors attached to like certain things in pop culture, it can maybe be, it's something that's gonna like expire. Seems like quicker and quicker these days. So like that idea, and so that's why these are, this is a printmaking silkscreen process called color reduction printing, where you can actually just use, I just use the actual box and tape it to the screen and use that as a way to sort of create the painting. There's obviously less colors here, but everything is sort of impressionistic. And you can kind of see how you don't really need very much detail to tell what these things are. But I've been thinking about trying to make them even more sort of impressionistic, but I think that you'd be able to tell very easily what these are from any distance. There's some Jurassic Park themed Eggo waffles. But once you start exploring, these boxes are so interesting, and then they have all this like printing information too. When you actually take them apart, they have all the registration marks and everything. So once again, sort of exploring that idea of print. And so this one also references sort of industrial printing. This is called CMYK printing. We're using 4 different, very specifically mixed transparencies of ink. CMYK, which is cyan, yellow, magenta, and black. And mixed together, they make this, you can get this really nice sort of full color range, or fairly full color range. But brown is one of the hardest, most complex colors to mix using these things. So I thought it was really interesting. If you, I always want to put this like really far away just to see it from like 50 feet away. But it turns into this sort of chocolatey brown. But up close, I think it's really complex and very interesting. And then so actually do make products. It's a nice way to sort of test out ideas, brings in a little bit of money to keep the lights on sometimes too. And so I think I always kind of pick on Pepsi because it's the second most popular soda. And it will always probably be the second most popular soda. And so I like feel for that person, that company in that way, where you just have to like live with that, you know, like there'll always be number 2. And so this was another thing where I was teaching and I was thinking about this. I get apparently so many ideas from talking to students, but I saw so many kids that would do like Google searches before, if they had an idea, they would do like a Google search to make sure no one else had done it. And that's so scary if you think about it, because like, we're just like, there's more and more things being generated, more ideas. and you can always find somebody that's already done something, you know, and it's such a like a, it's just going to be a very self-fulfilling prophecy where like you never feel like you can make something original. And so I always like I just celebrate the idea of like a really good like rip-off of something, or like knowing that something else is out there, but still going through the action of making it and taking it over and having it be around. And so this was just like a very silly way of sort of doing that. And so pop copies, sham soda, counterfeit cola. But they're all just like, you know, slight deviations away from the second most popular sodas. And so lastly, this is actually something brand new. It's not quite finished yet, but I thought it would be interesting to bring it in anyway. But it's still this idea, it's also this idea of sort of memory and reference and things, and how those have like an expiration date, and sort of attributing that to the idea of changing formats. And so like if you have like a bunch of music on CD and then you know it changes format or something, or you get rid of your CD player and you just have these like objects that you remember being really important to you, but you can't actually pull any physical information from anymore. And so I kind of came up with this. It's basically a ripoff of the Betamax, but it's called Gamma tapes. And so I've been making these Gamma tapes, and I don't exactly know, but it's kind of referencing that, but just like actually printing on a block of wood and then having these references. But that sort of idea of the investing in pop culture and how that has a very like short lifespan, it seems. So that's kind of all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Grayson.
I heard you talk about the rip-off, like ripping off. It makes me think of the cover.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like I'm just thinking about like Klaus and Oldenburg, and, you know, like already sort of covering something. But it feels like you're kind of covering or ripping off pop art rather than, it seems almost like you're ripping off pop art rather than ripping off these brands.
Yeah.
It's like a remix or like coming back, resurgence of pop, or remix of pop or something.
Yeah, selectively. Yeah.
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 That has more to do with the process. And I'm sorry, there's no question in this.
Yeah. I was wondering, is there a question somewhere? No. But I remember doing like anytime, because I've always played music and I've always made art, and it's been cool because it was always like a group thing, and the other one, and they've slowly kind of switched, and they've been able to like incorporate each other a lot more over the years. But anytime I was super confused about some weird concept in art, I feel like I always could make some comparison to music and be like, why is it like that? Like, why is it so taboo to make something that's similar, or doing like a version of somebody else's thing and making it your own? Because that's happens all the time in music, and it's not as big of a deal. But it has been really scary, like seeing like the Robin Thicke stuff and like all those like the copyright laws where there's like a melody that happens in a chorus of some song, and then that's like a copyrighted thing, and they have to pay all their, you know, any money that they made to like some, you know, not that it's a lot of money, but it's just interesting that you can like own this sort of chord progression or something. It seems terrifying. So yeah.
When you make the box, the prints based on the reduction prints based on the boxes, those are like a much more painterly touch kind of. There's more of the hand in that. What information are you looking to hold on to, and what are you looking to like fall by the wayside? And is there is there a level of detail that you're like striving for? Or is that sort of information loss that you get through a process, like the sort of the main driving focus of it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And these aren't even like torn down to the right shape or because they're not finished. But I think it's a.
Do you make boxes out of them?
I haven't yet. No,
okay.
no.
The print is a flat, like when they're torn down or finished, are they the flat object or are they?
I mean, they could be any of them, I'm sure. And that's like a very like, you're all my favorite kids answer or whatever. I'm not sure yet actually, and I think that's why maybe this kind of stopped and stalled a little bit. But I have a series of 6 of these boxes, and I've actually cut them down and exhibited them in different ways. And I think that's also very interesting too. Like this could be a product, this could be an art, and it's all about those last final kind of decisions that you make for the exhibition that makes that decision. You know, like what kind of product is this going to be? But I think that is a very interesting question. I don't think I've solved it yet. Where I'm obviously trying to make the words illegible. I'm really interested in the parts, like all these boxes like change over time, but there's certain parts that are always the same. I'm really interested in that, and those parts. This is always kind of similar, and all the different from the 90s to now. Cheez-It box stayed true to this part. But I'm not sure. But that's a really good question. I think that will be what these are about, you know. So.
Related to Grayson's engine as well, I think it's interesting because the pop artists weren't around long enough to realize how short the lifespan of some of their visual languages. So it's funny now. I mean, because they'd be like, oh, it's the universal half tone that we're like. I mean, it still exists, but we like interact with things on our screen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of real separation now in how people consume the images. So it's kind of an extension of that to point out some of the lifespan.
Yeah, or like come with a history lesson now or something. I have to put it into context of the time period. Is what I mean.
Well, it's also like, for me, like, because Mark came and spoke at Craft, is that just yesterday?
It was. Yeah.
And I just think it's interesting to think about how much you're talking about memory, and this is clearly like almost loss of memory. That image is kind of slipping away. It's there, but is this the first time you've approached this kind of project with that sort of painted until it's gone sort of printmaking method? Did you use it before? I guess I don't know your work well enough.
I've always loved color reduction because it's so economical as far as color, and like I definitely used it a lot when I was like had a print shop out of my basement and stuff. It's like you can create one stencil and use it to create lots of color. So it's really great for that. But it was always for someone else's kind of project. So that's one of those things that I think you start to think of. I'm like, this would be really good language for that while I was making some like rock poster or something. You know?
In a way, it is sort of like, it's almost like you gave yourself a challenge to repaint this from memory.
Yeah.
Doing it the opposite way.
Yeah.
It ties into like all these feelings of childhood and recordings and inaccessible material had a value, and now where is it?
Yeah, for sure.
It's nice how they tie it into that way.
Yeah, and this is also very different. Like almost everything is, a lot of things are hand drawn. I think in my work, and it's this being such a direct replication is really strange. So.
Well, it's new enough that you're still like, what does it mean?
Yeah, I'm still looking at it. Like, yeah, still like it.
I think we can do one last easy question for Mark. Anyone?
Just one easy one.
Just a quick
Yeah.
one. Or we can say thank you very much.
Okay.
Fantastic.